Hey, welcome back to hour number 4 of the Cook and Joe Show. No Joe today. He's off. He'll be back with me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pleased to go out to the Nemacolin fan hotline and welcome in my pal, Paul Steigerwald, Penguins longtime watcher and observer, and can't wait to hear his opinions as the new season is getting ready to get started tonight in Tampa Bay. Paul, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, Cookie. I was just sitting there, and I just decided to go back and look at the banner raising from 2017. The Penguins won there.
It's a lot more fun when they're raising it here than watching it tonight in Tampa, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it made me think about it and just, what the Penguins were thinking at that time and what the Lightning might be thinking as they raise it tonight and what the Penguins will be thinking as they watch them do it. I mean, it's just an interesting contrast and sort of dynamic to think about it on a night like this because, Penguins had won 2 in a row and we're talking about winning 3. Now you hear the Lightning doing the same thing. It's not an easy thing to do. They do have a chance to kind of earn the moniker of dynasty, and that's what the Penguins were trying to do back then. But I think what happens is you think it's a little easier than it actually is when you've won it twice in a row, but it's a hard thing to do.
Well, let's talk about these Penguins. More bad news, I guess, at practice today. Mike Matheson was skating and then left early and now has been ruled out of the game. We know Sid isn't going to play tonight, probably not in Florida Thursday, hopefully Saturday in the home opener. No Gensel tonight, but maybe Thursday. No Aston Reese tonight, but maybe Thursday. Obviously, Malkin out for an extended period of time. What do you make of the Matheson situation, and how much of a loss is that? He was scheduled to be on the second pair with Marino.
That's worrisome because he had that issue that kept him out of the game the other night, and it's a nagging lower body problem. And oftentimes those kinds of injuries are ones that linger unless you give them time to really heal. And if it's a groin or something like that, it can continue to nag a player. Or if it's one of those sports injuries that guys get, hockey players get, where they have those abdominal strains, something like that, that's what you worry about. You just hope it's something that, with a little rest, it'll go away. But if you keep trying to play without giving it time to heal, it can nag you all year long. And, his strong suit, obviously, is his skating. He's one of the best pure skaters in the NHL, and the Penguins really need him for sure.
Pat, what do you make of this team? Bounced last year for the third year in a row, much too quickly for anyone's liking. Didn't really add a lot. I'm not sure they're better. You add a Heinen, a Boyle, a Brock McGinn, you lose a Tanev, a McCann, a Ceci. What do you make of this team where it is? And I know, the good news is Sid looks like he's going to be back soon, same with Gensel. What do you make of this team?
Well, I don't think they've lost their character. They've lost players, but they still have the same character that helped them win a division last year. Their trademark has become resiliency, whether people want to put a lot of emphasis on that or not. They've shown it during the regular season to an extent that they're able to have successful regular seasons, and I don't think that they're a team that has lost that particular characteristic, the one that helps them win games. So I think that they'll continue to feed off of that. It's been a kind of a long-standing thing for them. When you look at the man games they've lost to injury, 315 and 15-16, 286 and 16-17, 173 and 17-18, 226 and 18-19. 302 was projected to 359 over 82 games in 1920, and 273 man games lost to injury last year, which projects to 400 over 82 games, yet they won the division. So I think that they're a team that still has the makeup of a team that can overcome things and pull together and win hockey games. Having said that, they're in a very competitive division with some other really good teams that are improving. The New York Rangers, I think, are a force now. The Islanders are going to be good every night. The Washington Capitals are a bit of a question mark. But as for the Penguins, I think obviously that you got to get Sid back in the lineup sooner rather than later. They're not going to be able to sustain much success losing star players like that for long stretches. I mean, it's one thing to lose a Malkin and not Crosby. When you have both of them out of the lineup, it's a completely different story. Yet the Penguins have historically also had a pretty good record when both of them are out of the lineup. So regular season's a different animal. I think the Penguins will continue to compete and find ways to win to the extent that they'll keep themselves in position to make the playoffs when everybody gets back.
I think they're 31-15 without Crosby and Malkin. It's something just astounding, but it looks again like Sid hopefully can play maybe Saturday night in the home opener. I just wonder where the goals are going to come from, this year with Malkin out for as long as he is. I mean, do you like the Heinen guy? Do you like him at all? What do you think Boyle's going to bring him on the fourth line? I hear great energy things about Brock McGinn. What do you think about the new guys?
Well, they have to be harder to play against, and I think Brian Boyle makes them harder to play against. The Penguins are a team that does rely on goal scoring, and they were one of the top scoring teams in the league last year, even with the injuries that they had to Sid early, and then, of course, Gino struggled for a while until he finally got it together, and then he was hurt again. So I think that Gensel, Rust, Jeff Carter, I think these guys could all score goals. I think Kasperi Kapanen's a really important player. I think he'll score. The interesting aspect of this is that without Sid and Gino, your power play really is missing two world-class players that would theoretically make that power play way more potent than it could be without them. But on the other hand, I've seen power plays work well just by having the right ingredients, not necessarily having the best players out there, all five, but the right ones that complement each other. And so it's going to be important, I think, for the Penguins to get their power play going and clicking despite the absence of Gino. Hopefully Sid's back soon enough to be a part of that. So when you say where are the goals going to come from, to me, the power play is going to be important. And I think that obviously the Penguins have to be a good defensive team, and they've got to manage the puck well. They're going to have to play tighter games. But they've done that in the past. They've been able to do it. So I think, when I think of the Penguins when they struggle, it's usually when they don't get the puck out of their own zone cleanly. I saw a little bit of examples of that in the preseason. It seemed like every time they didn't get the puck out when they had an opportunity to do it, it ended up either in their net or at least a really good scoring chance. So to me, they're going to have to be really clean coming out of their own zone and making sure that they don't beat themselves by mismanaging the puck and putting themselves in positions where the other team is feeding off of their mistakes. And that's really kind of coaching, and it's responsible play. It's good two-way play and conscientious play. And I think they've done that when they've been missing their top players in the past, and I think they'll do it again because they are so well coached.
Talking to Paul Steigerwald here on the Cook and Joe Show. Paul, Jason Zucker said he didn't like how he played last year. I think he used the word terrible. We had him on with us yesterday, and he said, I just need to shoot more. I'm a shooter. That's what I am. I got to take advantage of my opportunities. They could really use a big year from him, couldn't they? And I guess he's starting the season with Evan Rodriguez at center and then obviously Kapanen at right wing. I really like Kapanen. What do you expect from that line, and how important is it that they really produce something?
Well, it's funny you say that. I didn't even mention Zucker when I was mentioning guys that could score, so there you go. I do think he is a guy that would be a real bonus. At one point it was expected when they got him after Jake Gensel was injured a couple of years ago, but it would be nice if he could become more reliable as a consistent goal scorer. I like Kapanen a lot, and I like Zucker enough. Evan Rodriguez is a good stopgap for a while. It's all about those three guys playing the right way together, and I think they're going to get their chances. So it's just a question of whether or not Zucker will finish those chances, and Kapanen, same thing. And they've got to play well defensively too. It's like I said. I mean, you got to have a responsible approach to it. A lot of times the Penguins, with their great offensive players, tend to force offense when it's not there, and it just gets themselves into trouble. I think as long as they're keeping the game simple and getting the puck behind the other team's D and working down low and using their skill and and they're smart. So I think that line could be potent. I mean, Kapanen can score. Zucker's proven in the past that he can score. Evan Rodriguez is more of a, he's going to be more of a complementary player on that line. But, there's no reason to think that they won't score the odd goal now and then. And all you need is one more than the other guys to win. So it's not like the Penguins have to light up the scoreboard. They just got to find ways to win games when they're missing key players.
Are you predicting a big bounce back by Jarry?
Yeah, I think Jarry will be fine. I don't think we should be defining Jarry by what happened to him in the playoffs. It's probably more reasonable to define him by what he accomplished all year last year. And he was pretty darn good for most of the year. He had some issues on the road at times, and then of course he imploded in the playoffs. But this is a regular season. He's stopped pucks his whole life. He's a quality goaltender, and there's no reason to think that he won't play at the same level he did last year in the regular season and give the Penguins a chance to win every night, which is all you really want.
Paul, are they big enough in front of him? Big enough, tough enough. To me, they look like a team built for the regular season because penalties are called. When they're healthy, they should have a heck of a power play. But the playoffs, the whistles go away, and the Crosby, Rust, Gensel got the heck beat out of them by the Islanders, and the Penguins couldn't really respond to that. Are they big enough and strong enough? And I know they added Boyle, who's a giant. Is that enough to make them, a playoff caliber team when the time gets here?
Well, when you think about it, if you're bigger up front, then you can kind of somewhat mitigate against those big defensemen that other teams are in love with right now. Where I worry more about the Penguins is in front of their own net, not being able to deal with some of the physicality that other teams bring, and I think teams will try to take advantage of that against the Penguins. So it's going to be important, again, for the Penguins to be able to move the puck quickly out of their own end, and their forwards are going to have to really help out and make sure that they're not losing puck battles when the puck pops loose around the net, that kind of thing. So they're going to have to be particularly on their toes. But I would say, to answer your question directly, they're not built for the playoffs right now, but you don't have to worry about that till the trading deadline necessarily. You've got all year to get yourself built a little bit better for that. As for the regular season, I think with this new cross-checking crackdown, which I think is really important, because I thought for 3 or 4 years that cross-checking was way out of hand in the NHL. I might have been one of the first people to really start saying it on that sort of national radio 3 years ago, that I thought that was the next slashing that they needed to really crack down, and it took them a couple of years to get around to doing it until it got, into epidemic proportions. And I think the fact that they're going to call that, and players are going to have to adjust, those big defensemen aren't going to have the benefit of hammering Jake Gensel from behind with their stick like they were doing in the playoffs last year. Sidney Crosby, same thing. So I think that's going to help the Penguins' cause when they get around the net. They aren't going to be, teams aren't going to get away with it. And if they do take the penalties, that's where the Penguins' power play is going to be really important. So I think that the change of the cross-checking rule or the enforcement of it will help the Penguins' cause.
All right, down to about 2 minutes with Paul Steigerwald. Paul, handicap the division for me. I love the Rangers this year. Some people like the Islanders. Some people like Carolina. How do you handicap the division, and do you see the Penguins making the playoffs?
I think the Penguins will make the playoffs. I think those teams are all really good. The one team to me that's a little bit vulnerable, and maybe the Penguins beat them out for a playoff spot, a team that's always had them, are the Capitals. And, we know they're a good team, but, let's face it, these are all good teams. Some good team is going to miss. But I think the Penguins will get in, but I think Carolina, people are like saying, well, what about their goaltending? Well, I'm not a big Freddie Anderson fan. Their goalie was in Toronto, but, he's going to be playing on a team that's a lot better defensively than Toronto was. I think he could be a nice pickup, actually, for Carolina. And I do believe the Rangers made a lot of good additions to their team. I think that what they did was fill out the areas they needed to fill out, and I think that they're the next force in the East in the NHL. Maybe not this year, but I think it could be as soon as this year.
Paul, the Penguins and Capitals seem a lot alike. A little bit of an aging team, obviously Ovechkin, but I see Nick Lidstrom. How about that? Nicholas Backstrom out for 10 games at least on long-term IR. Penguins aren't the only team losing star players, are they?
No, it happens. Every team has to go through it, and you've got to overcome it. So it's a long year, and If you can't do that, you're not going to win. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that's where depth comes in, and that's where the character of your team is tested. And what really comes down to is goaltending. I mean, if you have the guy who can stop the puck and give you a chance to win every night, chances are you're going to be able to pick up some points if you've got some talent. You don't necessarily have to have all of your weapons firing at once, but you got to make sure that you get the basics, which is playing, a good responsible game, getting good goaltending and good special teams, and you have a chance to win.
Paul, I really appreciate it, man. Let's do this again real soon, okay?
All right, Cookie. Thanks for having
me. Thank you, and enjoy the season, man. It's hockey. See, it's a hockey night in Pittsburgh again. Thanks to Paul Steigerwald for joining me.